Hello.
Hi.
I can't hear anything yet, but I just thought I'd say hi anyway. I can't hear anything.
There's not a lot of noise in the room. Can you hear that?
Oh, now I can. Now I can.
Hi, Nina, it's Whiskers. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, it's Whiskers. I don't. Hi.
Hiya.
Hi, Ruth.
Hi, Whiskers. Sorry we couldn't make it. Bloody trains.
Yeah, so I said a few minutes ago, this is obviously, we've had to plan it this way, which I think is going to work.
Yeah, I think so.
Make that work, yeah.
Yeah. So what you can't see, maybe Nina and Ruth can't see, is a full room. Do you want to make yourself, do you want to show how many people are here so they can hear?
I hear a little bit of rumbling in the background, so that sounds like quite a lot of people.
Just so we can check, Katherine and Eva, do you want to say hello and see how that's getting picked up?
Yeah, hi. Hi both. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me as well?
Yes, great. I can hear you both. Perfect.
Right, that gives me a lot of confidence that this might work. Right, so, hi everyone. AIM presents Indie Labels. Away you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Whiskers, and thanks everyone. And yeah, just to echo Ruth, really sorry that we couldn't be there in person. I absolutely love coming to Leeds, so I'm absolutely gutted that I couldn't make it up because of the train strikes, but hopefully very, very soon, and hopefully we'll be able to follow up after the panel as well. Yeah, Whiskers introduced the panel, Indie Labels Supporting Northern Talent. My name is Nina. I work for the Association of Independent Music, also known as AIM, as head of membership. And I'm joined today by three incredible women from the AIM community that I work very closely with. And yeah, I'm going to let you all introduce yourselves. I think the best possible way is if I direct as much as possible who is going to speak when. So I'm going to start off with Ruth and then hand over to Eva and then Katherine.
Hello. Oh, thanks, Nina. So, hello, I'm Ruth Barlow. My day job is working for the Beggars Group of Labels, which is 4AD, Matador, Rough Trade, Excel, and Young Recordings. I'm the director of live licensing, which sounds really boring, and at times it really is. But at Beggars, we work with artists across the spectrum of genres and stages of their careers. Anyone from Queens of the Stone Age, Big Thief, Peggy Goo, Jamie XX, Lancome, Dry Cleaning, and Goat Girl, and that's just to name a few. But last year I was appointed as the current chair of AIM, as Nina said, the Association of Independent Music, and we represent all manner of rights holders, from bigger indie labels like myself, Domino, Ninja Tunes, Secretly, to Leeds labels like Leaf and Dance the Radio, Come Play With Me, and a big bunch of self-releasing artists and everything in between.
That's right. Eva, can you go next?
Hi everyone, I'm Eva. I am the label manager at Come Play With Me, which is a Leeds-based artist development organisation. We have a record label that's partnered with EMI North with a sub-publisher through Universal, and then we also run events. We do conferences like this. We run a programme called Come Platform Me that supports first-time promoters, and then we also have a magazine and do loads of like workshops for artists and LGBTQ inclusion.
Hi, I'm Katherine from Heavenly Recordings. I'm Heavenly Recordings social media manager, and our record label is London-based, but I work remotely in Manchester. Heavenly is currently home to Lynx, Kneecap, The Oriels, Revival Season, Halo Maud, Baxter Jury, and yeah, quite a few other acts. In the northern area would be Wonder, and recently we also did Working Men's Club's last two albums as well.
Great, you've perfectly segued into my first question, Katherine. Maybe Eva, can you kind of explain a bit about which artists from the north of England you're currently working with on your label?
Yes, so Come Play With Me for the core roster, we work with Green Gardens, Pop Vulture, Bug Teeth. We've also just recently signed Hang Linton, and then we also run a series of compilation albums where we work with between 8 and 12 emerging artists from across the north to release like their first ever track, and then we run artist workshops with them. But yeah.
Amazing. Ruth, obviously there's quite a few labels under the Beggars umbrella. What are some artists from the north of England that you're currently working with, and how are you working with them?
Well, I'm really ashamed about this question, actually, Nina. And yesterday I did like a dig in our roster, and you bear in mind that our across the 5 labels, it's probably about 80 current artists. And although we have had a history of working with people from the north, as far as I can see, we don't currently work with any artists from the north of England, unless you count Nottingham, which is Sleaford Mods. But I'd probably put that more in the Midlands. Did I just say Midlands? Midland count.
Okay, cool. Well, that's obviously how can artists from the north make themselves a bit more seen? How does an artist connect with a label? Ruth, do you want to maybe start off with that, and then I'll go round the house again?
Yeah, sure. I mean, how does a label connect with how does an artist connect with a label? I think, for me, Young Recordings, which used to be called Young Turks, is an interesting example whereby they've just set up this multi-use young space down in Hackney. And essentially it opened with like studios and as a creative space. And I think that through those relationships, you've got a producer in-house bringing artists through the doors, and there's A&Rs in the building, and there's a radio station, Foundation FM in the building. And I think, because there's just this ecosystem, I mean, artists come into their orbit rather than the other way around, if you know what I mean. And in my experience, certainly over the years, artist relationships usually begat other artist relationships. So, I mean, a lot of our signings traditionally actually come from existing signing recommendations. Or, so again, it's just good old-fashioned networks, shows, personal recommendations, industry tip-offs, listening and following artists. And, obviously from an A&R perspective, it's always got to be a good fit with the label as well. But, yeah. So I'd say it works in our world.
Okay, great. What's the process for talent discovery at Heavenly, Katherine?
I would say it's pretty similar to what Ruth is saying. So in terms of the 2 northern artists that we previously worked with, the Oriels and Working Men's Club, that all started with us taking a trip up to the Trades Club. We'd heard about the venue. We had an artist called Jimmy Goodwin who used to be in Doves that played in that venue, and we took a trip up there, and the guy running the venue couldn't stop telling us about this band, the Oriels. I mean, it was a double-pronged effect, and that we also had the manager emailing us about the band as well. And then more and more, as those 2 people were sort of spearheading it, we had friends of ours coming up to us and saying, have you heard of this band? I was living in Liverpool at the time. Bill Ryder-Jones was a fan, so I went to go and see Z Band. So it does kind of work like that within that remit. And similarly with Wonder, who we work with now, we've had a long-standing relationship with Sounds from the Other City Festival. And Rivka Burns, who runs that festival now at Factory International, she told us about Wonder, so we came up to see her as part of our annual trip to the festival. And yeah, I mean, we even signed Pit Blom at that festival, who aren't a northern band. Yeah, we certainly don't like to see ourselves as a London-based label. My boss in particular is from Nottingham, so yeah, he's got a Midlands experience. So yeah, we try and get to as many gigs regionally as we can, whether that's, Leeds, Liverpool, Manchester. We also work with a couple of artists who are Bristol based, Katie J. Pearson and Lynx. So yeah, it's about getting out and about. But yeah, there are certainly people in certain cities that are worth knowing and worth talking to, and quite a few of them are here today, whether that's, Nathan at the Brood Now or the guys from Come Play With Me. They really know their city inside out, and they will be the ones that know the best artist, I have no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. And Eva, you've got quite an interesting setup with Come Play With Me as well in terms of how the business is kind of set up. You talked about that a little bit already, around, you know, how you support artists releasing their first singles, and you've got your magazine as well. What does that kind of look like for you? How do you connect with the different artists through your label?
I think because one of the main priorities of Come Play With Me is around championing the northern music industry and doing our part to do that. So everyone on the Come Play With Me label team is incredibly passionate about local music, and because of that, outside of work we'll all be at completely different gigs, especially because we all have such varying like preferences and like music tastes and stuff like that. So I think the biggest thing for us is just going out and seeing artists and then just chatting to people and having like an actual like personal connection and building on that. I think is the biggest thing for us.
Amazing. So I think the big takeaway for any artist in the room here is gig as much as you can. Make network at the same time. So what are some other ways for artists to build their fan base in the north of England, or specifically in Yorkshire? Maybe Eva, if you want to start with that.
Yeah, I mean, again, like playing as many gigs as possible is always a big thing, and not just at the weekend, in the middle of the week, because that means that we can just go there straight from the office, which is often a lot easier. And coming to things like this and just meeting people, chatting to people, because especially in Leeds and in the north, as soon as you've built a connection with one person, that opens so many doors, and you'll be able to just connect with managers, booking agents, other labels, other artists, and it just kind of spirals. So you kind of just need to take a punt and just connect with that one person, and then it all, well, hopefully it would all open up.
Great. Katherine, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so similarly, I think it's about going to as many things as possible, and doing as many things as possible, and just being open to opportunities. Like, I think it's really easy to look at somewhere like Leeds and think, I want to play the Breednell Social Club, you know, and have that as your main thing. But I mean, I've only been here 5 minutes, and I've heard of 3 venues that I've never heard of before, that are probably where you're going to meet more interesting people that are not, you know, 6 music dads at the Breednell Social Club. And it's a great aim to play those bigger places. But in order for those places to function as they are as bigger venues, it's all happening in the smaller places. So, you know, it's about looking online and picking up bits of information. It's about following the right people on social media. There's a lot of really good charities in West Yorkshire that promote all of these things. There's a lot of good art spaces, and you've got a really good university here, which I'm sure really advertises and advocates for those things as well.
Yeah, Ruth, I know you've obviously in your career gone all across the country. You've done a lot in radio as well. What's your take on this question? Like, how can artists build a fan base, maybe outside of gigging slightly, in the north of England in particular?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's not just the north of England. I think it goes for anywhere globally. It's about being part of a scene, right? And it's like you identify a scene that you want to be in, and you sort of like connect with that scene. It's almost like what do they call it? Like no, my analogies are really terrible. I'm going to not do that. But essentially, yeah, see the scene, be the scene, you know, infiltrate the scene, become the scene. And, you know, supporting like-minded artists in the hope that they would do the same for you. You're building something from the inside out, in a way. It's very much echoing what everyone else has said.
Yeah, so it's about building communities, really. Katherine, you obviously look after social media. What role do you think does that play in connecting, maybe also a bit more across and outside of your region that you live in as well?
I think obviously social media is a great way to promote yourself and to show what you're doing and to get your personality across. I think that, again, social media is a really good tool for building communities. Like, people amongst all the sort of deep promotion and ad sharing and, you know, content sharing that people think about and that we all get a bit, I guess, brain fog about sometimes, especially as an artist, you know, I feel for you. But I think in terms of communities, looking at places like the good parts of Twitter, the better parts of Instagram, and, you know, Facebook groups and things like that, you can meet people and you can make friends. I mean, I moved to Manchester after the pandemic, and about 6 of the people that I met when I moved, I'd spoken to online during the pandemic, and then I met them in person, and a lot of them are still my friends. So I think, yeah, not looking at it as a constant promotion tool is really key to helping build those communities outside of interacting with people. And then when you do meet those people in person, it is a nicer thing. I do think, like, slowly it is becoming okay to come up to people and say, you know, I follow you on Instagram, are you so and so from Heavenly, especially if that's what my Instagram is about. You know, it certainly doesn't bother me, and I've certainly done it to other people. Obviously you've got to be a bit more careful when people's profiles are private and it's their own name and their own world. But yeah, those barriers have certainly been broken since the pandemic, which I think is really helpful.
Yeah, you can see this obviously also here, where we can be in Leeds without being in Leeds as well. So it's very interconnected after the pandemic. We've, you know, one thing that last time I've come to Leeds and the last few times I've come to Leeds, I've spoken to a lot of you know, a lot of the labels there, a lot of the artists there, and it's very important for them to not need to move back to London or need to move to London to build a sustainable business or a sustainable career. I think there are probably some, you know, aspiring labels in the room as well as artists. So what can labels in the North do to build sustainable businesses outside of London? And then maybe also kind of looking at the question of what can artists do to build sustainable careers. Eva, do you want to kick us off with that?
Yes, I think building a sustainable label is incredibly hard, and it's really difficult, and it's even harder to build a label where you're championing emerging artists that is successful and can run off its own back. And that, not trying to dissuade anyone from doing it, but I think it's important to kind of understand that going into it, and it takes a lot of hard work. But I think it definitely goes back to the whole thing of meeting people and coming to things like this and asking people that have done it for years on advice, because what you'll find is most people in the industry will want to help you and will be more than happy to go for a coffee or go for a pint or whatever, just to have a chat and like give you advice and help out. So I think that's really important, and having like a real clear identity and clear, I guess, mission of what it is that you want your label to do, because there's so many labels that will just release music, but it's like, what's going to make you stand out and what's going to make people remember you and your label, I think is a big thing.
Okay, great. Ruth, obviously you work for a company that has a lot of different labels in it, but they all start at somewhere as well, and have got such interesting stories as well. What is your take on that question?
I mean, it's such a huge question, and I'd echo that. It's really hard to run a record label these days. You know, just the ecosystem is sort of pointed towards record labels who have catalogue, as opposed to working with emerging artists. So it's a really difficult business. So I think the first thing is to do is not to expect to make any money. And you've got to expect to do that for quite some time. But again, not meaning to sound like I'm beating the same drum, but it is about that notion of support. I mean, Beggars Group, they started as a DJ outfit, then it became a record store, and then it became a chain of record stores, and then it became a rehearsal room for a punk band that nobody else wanted to sign, and then it became, a label out of necessity, and then it got a megastar. So it's all luck. And I think this, the same goes today. You got to sort of like go into this business knowing that, well, doing it because you love it, because you might get lucky, but then you might not as well. But it is about that notion of support. It is about nurturing the scene. And when I say scene, It's not just about live shows, it's about fashion, it's about the pubs that you go to, it's the people that you hang out with, it's about the university to go to. It's about an ecosystem of like-minded people who turn up for each other. So like I say, I mean, you know, in terms of being good at business, I mean, smart, make sure that you can, you know, run your accounts, make sure that you know, there's so much information now for labels, you know, the different revenue streams and all the rest of it that operate, you know, we deal with micropayments, so make sure that you're being smart and knowledgeable about all of the different revenue streams. But it is about supporting your record shop, supporting the venues, supporting each other's labels. You know, be competitive and not mean with your contemporaries. Know that there's common ground there, and if you're, you know, together, you're going to be stronger. I mean, that's the whole basis what AIM, you know, why AIM exists. And realizing that if you build it, you become a beacon for talented people as well. You know, there's that pipeline. I mean, you know, I was speaking to Mark at Scruff of the Neck the other day, and I asked him about this question because I feel really underqualified in a way to be answering it. But he said you can be that big fish in a small pond, or you can waste your time chasing the London thing, which is a really congested market, you know. But if you become a specialist in what you do, make friends, you get the best bands, you know, the best people. You're at uni meeting the best people to come through. You might be sat next to the best new radio DJ. But again, it's just all about that pipeline and nurturing of your community.
Yeah, you mentioned there, obviously AIM was built to kind of help labels with this, and one thing, I've been at AIM for 7.5 years, one thing I've really learned is that will and desire for the labels to share knowledge with each other, you know, because together we're much stronger than individual entities in terms of market share. So we at AIM, we try to make our events and knowledge as accessible as possible by offering a lot of online events and things like this, speaking at conferences, really being out there and being visible. So I think it's also probably about finding the right knowledge to build your business, because there's a lot of knowledge out there as well that will, you know, talk to you about what to do. But I think if it is coming from people that have been doing this for a very long time, then I think that can help you build a sustainable business as well.
Just one more thing, Nina, I think it's really important to say that, you know, in a region like the north of England, I think it's really important to celebrate each other's success as well. And I think that's really, you know, that again is sort of like, it's just another beacon for people to come to and want to be part of as well. If you're seeing your mate do really well, you know, don't bitch about them, be happy for them, because it will all sort of like reflect on you all. Yeah, exactly. Katherine, what's your take on that question?
Yeah, again, I would agree with what everybody said, in that strength in numbers, as they say, and also, you know, you're only going to learn from your peers as well, whether it's, you know, people that want to start a record label, people that want to put on gigs. You know, you're all going to need to help each other at some point, specifically in an area that perhaps is underfunded and there aren't as many opportunities for people. The only way of getting those opportunities is to start doing it yourself. Which does sound hard and is difficult, but I think it's, you know, it's really positive to see the EMI North is up here now, and it's really positive to see, yeah, two great labels come play with me and Clue join up together as part of that. You know, they've not looked at each other and gone, oh, we're they like similar bands, they're probably at the same shows, but they've not gone, oh no, we can't do that because we're the two labels in Leeds, you know. I'm sure I quite often think about when we went up to the Trades Club and we had King Gizzard playing, and, you know, the Oriel's Lounge Society and Working Men's Club formed. They all pretty much formed bands within that sort of 3 to 5 year period, and I'm pretty sure they probably would have formed a record label had we not stepped in and scooped a couple of them up. So there's definitely a passion and a desire for people that want to do it. And yes, at the moment it's not the easiest thing, but I think more and more as London becomes unaffordable for young people to live, that the desire to stay in your university city is going to be stronger. I think some of the university courses have got better. I think that events like this are certainly an even better way of meeting people outside of your, outside of your classroom, so to speak. So I think all the parts are there for these things to start happening, and although, the last couple of years with COVID and now with the current government, things have seemed somewhat bleak, I do actually think the future's quite bright, but it's definitely in your hands.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very, that's very true. I think there's been more of a desire to basically build communities and stay, in the region that you've lived in, you want to stay in. We've looked at kind of what labels can do. What are some practical kind of steps that artists can do to build sustainable careers? There's probably a lot of self-releasing artists there that are not yet on a label. How can they basically make sure that they can build a career on their own and then get noticed by a label, hopefully further down the line? Eva, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that you can do, especially as an independent artist. I think it's just as important as an artist as an industry professional to grow a network and meet people that know you as an artist and will want to support you as an artist. I think if there's financial barriers, there's so many different pots of funding now. You've got help musicians who have them for live touring, recording, releasing. It's currently closed, but I think it opens again in a few weeks. And then you've got PRS, PPL funding, Launchpad to do stuff for artists as well. So there's so many little pots of funding that can help you maintain your own career and do it. I think, again, gigging as much as you can to kind of grow your profile, grow your connections, just emailing people, promoters outside of cities, and demoing tunes that you've got loads of material to share with people and stuff like that, I think is what I'd say.
Youth music probably as well. That's where I last saw you, Eva and Ruth. I think last year there's some great funding opportunities there as well for artists. Katherine, what do you think about that question?
I would completely agree with what you said, and then I would also, oh God, I've literally just forgotten. So you were saying, you said about community. I was saying about artists supporting each other as well. That's the only thing that I would add, and artists collaborating with each other. If you're thinking to yourself, I really want to do a gig, think about your other artists and do that gig together. Make it a bigger event than what perhaps a gig in a coffee shop type place. I mean, I went to do a talk in Barrow in Finesse in the autumn last year, and there are very, very few gig spaces, and there were only about 7 or so, no, I'd say about 11 or so people in the room, and a couple of them were promoters, one had a venue, and the others were all artists. And I was like, you should all be doing something together. The fact that you're all sitting in this room and you don't know each other worries me somewhat, because it is as easy as that. Once you get speaking to other people, you form that connection, and I completely agree with what Eva said, and that forming a connection as an artist is just as important as someone that wants to get in the industry. And I know it's tougher because you've got your art that essentially is sacred to you, but it is, you kind of have to knock down those doors in order to be able to share it with other people.
Ruth, what's your take on this?
I don't really think there's much difference between wanting to be a label and an artist these days, to be honest. I mean, there's sort of obviously it's creativity in a different, in different directions. But I mean, without meaning to sound, just repeat what everyone else has said. I mean, I totally agree with those suggestions, and I would, again, the funding element is really important. There's so many pots of money in lots of different organisations around the place. Obviously, there's that MEGS fund recently through BPI and PRS Foundation, I think. But education, it's not just that, you won't just make money or establish a career playing to your mates. It's about thinking about it sort of like, you conquer that little bit and then start, moving out, connecting with people in, neighbouring cities and like, sorry, what's your name from Heavenly? I completely
Catherine.
forgot your name.
That's all right. It's Catherine.
But yeah, the idea of package tours I think is great actually. Getting three bands together and offering yourself out as like a package to local promoters in small venues or like in satellite towns. That's a brilliant idea to build it up, because in a way, and bring some of your mates, make it a big night out. And sort of like bring your scene with you in a way.
And those types of things funders like as well. If you're looking for funding, that's something that ticks a lot of Arts Council boxes. And it offers something different, which is not necessarily, maybe it has been done before, but not in a certain way. Like there was that Manchester band Loose Articles that did it. It was called Kick Like a Girl. So they brought with them a couple of industry professionals to every gig, and it was in satellite towns. So they had conversations like this at the beginning of each show. And then on top of that, their sound person was a girl, and their tech person was a girl, and their tour manager was a girl. So that allowed them to not only tour and get the practice that they needed and the rehearsal, the sort of it helped them to rehearse and to get ready to record their debut album. It also gave them the keys to the funding because it was unique in that sense.
Yeah, it's like thinking outside the box, isn't it? We should also shout out to Key Change as a funder as well through PRS. That's an important one.
Yeah, I think one thing to maybe pick up there, obviously, we've talked about kind of money coming in, but I think there's probably a big importance around building a sustainable career around, educating yourself about some of the more boring topics like taxes and small business cash flow, because if you do see yourself as an artist, it is really important to make sure that the money you get in is invested back into your career. What are some tips I think that you might have around that? I know it's a boring topic, but it's so important, I think, especially when you're applying for funding, because you have to show receipts of what you have done with the money, don't you? Maybe, I don't know who wants to take that, maybe Ruth or Katherine.
It's a boring question, Nina. Nobody wants to take it. We're like, boring.
Important though, it's important.
Just treating it like a business. It is your business. Obviously, it's your art as well. But if you're serious about it being your business, then you need to be a business person. So, presumably there are courses out there and knowledge sharing, and, whether that's at Launchpad or at AIM or wherever. But, things like registering your tracks at PPL, and PRS and all these different sorts of things. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to give up that one.
Yeah, that is a tricky one. I mean, I would be lying if I said most of our bands have jobs as well as being artists. That is kind of the nature of working with emerging artists. I can probably think of about maybe 3 of our artists that are artists full time, and that has been a career that's been maybe 10 or plus years. So in that aspect, that is how they pay for their day-to-day life. And then from a label point of view, most first or second albums for us, we are paying for the album and we are paying for the marketing. And some of the artists will get money through that and through a deal. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly become a lot smaller in terms of earnings, as we're all aware. But yeah, in terms of being an artist, find a mate that is an accountant. that might be helpful.
I was going to say, just get a manager.
Yeah, very, very good tips. Eva, do you have anything to add to that?
Not massively. I think PRS and PPL, incredibly important. Looking into signing up to a publisher. You've got like Launchpad Plus, Centric, who both help out with publishing stuff, because that's where a big part of income for artists is, often more than everything else. So it's definitely worth looking into that if you're an artist that's releasing music and playing gigs.
Yeah, and I think there's so much knowledge on, on the platforms. You've mentioned Launchpad Plus, you've mentioned Centric. I know that they've got loads of articles, so do we, so do all the DSPs, and so do PPL and PRS. If you want to know more around that, I think that's really important to kind of check those out. I'm not sure if we can also take questions from the audience. Is that possible in this setup?
Sorry, yes, nodding.
Can you hear me?
Yes, great. Okay, yes, I can. Okay, cool. Think of some questions in the audience while I'm going to ask the last question that I've got written down, because I want to make sure that you engage with the panelists as much as possible and that your questions are answered as well. So get your thinking caps on now. One of my last questions is, how can labels and artists engage with their local communities and governments? This is something I've spoken to Whiskers about the last time I was in Leeds, and also something I've spoken to Tony at Come Play With Me about, because I know, you guys are really good at kind of engaging with local governments and kind of looking at opportunities that way, and festival opportunities through that, etc., and also funding opportunities. Eva, how do you guys kind of engage with your local community and governments?
Is Tony here? Because I think he might be better to answer this one. But I think we often invite local MPs to our conference events and get them to speak and kind of show them what the local scene is. I can see Tony nodding, thanks. And yeah, kind of help bridge the gap between local government and the local music scene, I think, is where Come Play With Me exists, in that space, and making it clear to local government that the music scene is there and it still needs more support than we're getting.
Okay, great. Katherine, I know you live in Manchester, but obviously work for a London label, but I know Manchester is quite well connected around local governments as well, and quite vocal around it. I don't know if you've engaged with them there.
Yeah, funnily enough, as someone that lived in London and was working for a record label from quite a young age, it wasn't something that I'd thought about, but certainly since moving to Manchester, it's something that I have thought about, because Manchester is so active in promoting its music scene, whether it's in the history of the city or it's in the present day. And we are fortunate enough to have Andy Burnham that is trying to save our music venues and get public transport working so that people can safely travel to and from shows, which was reassuring to hear that your mayor in Leeds at the Nighttime Economy Conference recently is working on exactly that. Night buses to be able to get people from out of town to safely come to gigs, and yeah, fingers crossed our trains start doing the same in a couple of years' time. But there are a lot of things that the government do, and there are a lot of organisations around that, and I think these things are only going to get bigger as we hopefully come out of the current government and move forward, because it's not going to happen overnight. Things are going to take a couple of years to post-recession to get a lot better, but there are a lot of people doing a lot of good work. I know in Manchester we've got the Greater Manchester music community. You've got the City of Culture coming up in Bradford here next year. All of those things are good things ran by good people, and are all things that you should be aware of, or at least thinking about attending or going to or playing, or anything like that. Just looking at all these different things is certainly helpful when living in a city, for sure.
Ruth, do you have anything to add from a London perspective on this as well?
Well, I mean, obviously, we tend to use the, trade associations to engage on government level. I mean, it's really interesting what's being said, though, just about travel in the north. I mean, I may be in London, but I do listen to the radio quite a lot. And, it seems to me this whole sort of, notion of levelling up should really be about levelling across, because, it just completely shocks me that it can take someone, hours to get from from Leeds to Wakefield or what have you. But, you know, specifically about the north of England, I mean, you've got Whiskers in the room. He seems to be the most connected person around the whole region ever. So, sorry, Whiskers, just, you know, everyone just, yeah, call him up, ask him his advice.
Yeah, I think important to really get involved and engaged, I think, in that as well, you know, because I think artists have quite a lot of, I think politicians do really want to get involved in the music scene more than ever. That's at least what I've kind of felt engaging with them over the past few years. Are there any questions in the room for our panelists? And if you do have a question, then please say who it is for as well. So that makes it a bit easier for us with this hybrid model.
Okay, just bear with us. Who was first? I think the lady in the front was first. We just passed them out.
Hello. It's Eva, isn't it? Because I keep thinking it's Eva. As an artist, what would entice you from an independent label to come and see an artist at a venue, if they're headlining or if they're supporting? What would make you want to go and watch them?
I think a really nice, short and concise email. If we're more likely to read an email if it's short,
Yes.
because we have lots of work to be doing, so big paragraphs don't necessarily tend to get read. But in that email being like, here's my music, this is where I'm playing, if you want to come, let me know.
Yeah.
And keep it really short.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Thank
For
you.
people to come
Thank
to
you.
gigs.
Who's next? So can we do the front first and then go gradually to the back? Sorry.
Thank you, everyone. My name's Billy. So this could be a question for any of you. Do any of you have experience of cross-industry funding? So I work for an environmental NGO. So down south, I run a canal festival. We had paddle sports, wellbeing, and commissioned artists for songs, recording process, and displaying all of that art at the festival. So has anything like that been done up north, and would you be interested?
Sorry, I'm now all tangled. So Come Play With Me is a majority public funded organisation at the moment, but I don't think we've done anything. I'm going to look at Tony again. Is he still here? I can't see. Have we done...
We'd love to.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say, funnily enough, my company run a website called Caught by the River, as well as Heavenly, which is a nature website, not so much the well-being, but certainly the nature aspect, and in the past the festival aspect as well. We used to do Port Eliot Festival, we did one in North Wales, Good Life Festival, and there's certainly with sort of festivals having to do various different things, that is certainly somewhat of a unique idea, so it's definitely worth looking into as well, and certainly if you're considering that type of thing, I think bringing the literary world into it as well would probably be something that people would be interested in going to.
Yeah, just to add on that as well, there's a lot of music industry organisations for working against climate change and within sustainability. So it's worth checking out Earth Percent as well as Music Declares Emergency. And there might be some advice there if you get in touch with them, or if you need an intro to any of those, you can reach out to me as well. It's just nina@aim.org.uk. There are a couple of charities that might be able to help with this as well, and that they'll most likely want to hear about the festival as well.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions?
Just wondering, thinking about promoting, whether it's a label or an individual or a band or whatever, what's your thinking on merch? Is it high risk? Is it a money spinner? Where would you prioritise it in the activities that you do as an organisation?
I think for us, merch is where we generate most of our income as a label. whether that's vinyl, t-shirts. It can be a massive upfront cost, but if you like sell it right and price it right, then it's a massive earner for you as an independent artist and independent labels for sure.
Yeah, I'd second that. I mean, there's a lot of mechanics now, or companies that offer like print to order, or you can pre-order merch. So essentially, you're not wasting anything. You're just making the amount that you need to sell. But definitely worth it for an artist or any entity's economics, I think.
Yeah, we've started as a label to do the print your own, just because we look at our designs sometimes, and you know, sometimes they're seasonal, and to print a load is obviously not economically great, and also not eco-friendly. So yeah, as a label we've started to do that. But yeah, in terms of artists, merch is sort of where you make the bulk of your money now, whether it's selling it at venues or your best made Bandcamp, to be honest.
Yeah, and just really making it limited as well, you know, having limited runs of stuff, you know, doing stuff for particular tours or particular releases, and making it a small amount, you know, of stock, but making sure that you guarantee that you sell it out, and then you can maybe sell it for a bit more as well. But yeah, I love doing merch. I think I did merch for the XX's first record. It was, it was just mad. So many people just wanted black t-shirts with white X's on.
But yeah, that limited point is a really, really good point, because it also makes something desirable to people as well. And seeing as my boss has a terrible habit of we sell books on Bandcamp, about getting really excited about books, and he'll buy a limited copy, and then he'll get so excited he'll buy more, and I'm like, you're missing the point now. People, if you see a sold out sticker, you're more likely to buy something else from the shop. It's just the way people's minds work.
Hello.
Okay.
Can you see me or not? Is there any point standing up, or I just like a tool?
I can't see you.
I'll stand up. Right. Hello, I'm Billy Memphis. Basically, this goes for you, Katherine, Eva, and Ruth. Please will you sign my band, The North? It's a good name for you, Ruth, because you need some artists from the North, and it broadens it. So yeah, if you want to check us out, at thenorth.band on Instagram, The North on Spotify. But yeah, please do. Anyway, I'm Billy.
Thanks, Billy. I listen to all your music, sure. But I'm not an A&R person. I don't think anyone would want to listen to the music that I like.
I'm going to stand up as well, following Billy's lead, man. Respect, what a sick guy. I'm Ben Random, frontman songwriter of a band, Silverton Rascals, and self-releasing artist. A bit of a fear towards labels sometimes, and I think one of the points to that is that looking to set up my own tour, which we're doing in May, reaching out to certain venues, it feels like labels have a lot of a hold over certain particular labels. So you're reaching out to venues to perform at, you're getting told to get in touch with a particular label, then the labels aren't actually getting back. So it's almost like you're in the quicksand of reaching out because you're wanting to go on tour. So I suppose my question is, how much can you play your own city without oversaturating it? Because you said that it's all about playing live, but yeah, you have to start from your mates, and you feel a bit tight rinsing them all the time, coming to your gig even though they want to support, and it is reaching out there, but then obviously then to take it on the road, like, don't get me wrong, I'm a Bradford hustler, you know what I'm saying? I've managed to find venues in other cities, but I just think it could be a lot, not easier, but a lot more straightforward, man. So I just want to see why labels have just been a bit tight.
Yeah, Ben, I'm a little bit confused about what you're saying, because a lot of labels don't have any sway about venues. It's sort of a separate business, you know. It's normally the promoter that holds the sort of like strings when it comes to playing the venue. Labels, you know, separate, because obviously that's just about the recorded music side.
Sorry, could I just come back to that? I think it's a mix of like the promoters and the labels, if you get me. So I understand what you're saying is in the terminology breakdown of a promoter, but there are promoters that are labels as well that are in-house at particular venues. So there's definitely a Venn diagram where they cross over.
Well, if you're not getting any joy at those venues, just move along to another one, I think. But no, I mean, I think that's quite unusual in my experience. But to your point about oversaturation in a particular market, I think it's really relevant. And certainly, and I don't mean to be London-centric, but it's just, I am. But you know, there's this thing that a lot of emerging artists do around London, which is the M25 tour. Basically, what they do is sort of like do a ring of shows, sort of like go to the major, you know, the big cities outside the M25 and gradually make their way to London, because people will start coming in to travel. And I mean, if you think about doing something like that within your radius, or the other way around, you know, obviously you've got to start in your city and move out. But I feel like you have to look at it like a circle, and it's all about building your audience and hoping that you impress them enough that they'll come when you get to that big, you know, maybe it's going from Bradford to Leeds or Leeds to Manchester, you know. Get a map and draw a circle.
I completely agree with that. I also think looking at smaller festivals that are in other cities is a really good place, because you can say to a smaller festival, I have played every single venue in Bradford, and that would seem quite impressive to a small festival. And via playing something or applying, and a lot of these smaller festivals do have apply to play schemes as well. And you know, your reason can be, I have played every single venue in Bradford, you know, and I want to branch out. And then also you're more likely to meet other people at those types of events that perhaps are promoters at those venues that you're talking about, and therefore they would probably put you on after playing something like that. But yeah, again, labels and venues, two completely different things in the world that I live in. If anything, it's more the booking agents that cause the issues.
Yeah, I echo that. And then also, like, on the oversaturation stuff, I would look at like reaching out to local promoters for supports and getting supports that are of artists where you want to be in like 5 years' time, and then, or if there's like similar like genre crossover and latching onto other people's existing fan bases and using that. And one thing you can do is, if you get on a local support tour, if that artist is going on tour, then just message them and see if you can support at any of the other shows, and like chat to the bands that you're supporting, who's headlining, make a connection with them so that they'll remember you when they next play or when they play the bigger venue next time, and do that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, the support thing is a really good way to get around, and also just pitching. You know, if for whatever reason it's financially not, you know, you're not viable to be able to do the whole tour, or perhaps you've only supported them once in the venue in your hometown, you know, suggesting a couple of venues that are regionally in that same area is a really good place to start, because again, you know, a lot of artists are looking to support local areas by having local supports now. You know, it has become more of a common thing. So making that suggestion, rather than saying, you know, I just want to play London or I just want to play Manchester, you know, thinking about some of those regional venues that they could play in is massively helpful.
Are there any more questions?
I was going to say we probably have time for maybe one more question.
All right, I'll be brief. Hello. I was wondering then, thank you for all your presentation. As labels, you are really helpful for artists, local artists, and I was wondering, as a freshly new graduate student in music, new technicians, or even business students, how can we help you being more sustainable, like labels, and how can we help you being more supportive with local artists at our very little step, if you see what I mean?
I think so. We like work as Complay With Me, do a lot of stuff with Leeds Conservatoire and Leeds Beckett. So we kind of engage with uni students already. I think one thing you could do is, if there's a local label or a local organisation that you wanted to learn more about, just email them and say, can I come spend a day in the office? I just want to find out what you do, kind of thing. And then have that, or as we were saying earlier, just the amount of people in the industry that will be always more than happy to just meet you and help you out with any ideas and that kind of thing. So yeah, I just get in touch with people and offer them something, kind of.
All right, sounds nice. Thank you.
Could you just repeat the question as well, because it was a bit difficult for me to hear it. I don't know how Ruth feels about it, but I couldn't quite hear it. So if you could repeat it again, that'd be great.
Yes, simply how new graduate person can help labels, local labels, just help them in the other way around.
Are you talking about getting involved with local labels or other labels?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
where are you sometimes overwhelmed?
Actually, there are loads of sort of like intern programs now for graduates and for people from, you know, anywhere really. I mean, Beggars started one about 3 or 4 years ago now, and we've employed everyone. We do like these 6-month internship and pay people at the proper, you know, going rate and all of that sort of stuff. But I'm seeing loads more apprentice schemes, and Nina will talk to this because I know that she was involved with one at Amazon that launched last year with my previous chair, Nadia. But yeah, Nina, do you want to say about that?
Yeah, it's really interesting because 2 of those labels that take part in our AIM Amplify apprenticeship scheme are on stage right now. So it's a scheme that we launched in partnership with Women in Control and with Amazon Music. We're just currently going, and there'll hopefully be a year 2 where we then basically send out information on how to apply about it again. But yeah, there are loads of internship programs, there are loads of apprenticeship programs. Even if it's not in a scheme like the one that we're running, there's other apprenticeships that you can do at local labels. So have a look at different kind of routes in to. There's a lot of knowledge around there. If you look at UK Music's website, they've got a great scheme, the Music Academic Partnership Scheme, and they also talk about routes into the industry. So we're doing quite a lot to make sure that it's as easy as possible for graduates to understand what their options are. And like, I hear you, I think actually what Eva has said there is really important as well. Like reaching out to, don't be afraid to reach out to different labels. And just say, you know, I'd like to know more about how I can work with you, or I'd like to, you know, work at your label. I know a lot of people start their own labels and start their own businesses on the side to gain some of that experience, and then they have that and come with that ready for when there's an interview or a spot ready at a label or a publisher. So yeah, have a little look around. There's also the Creative Careers Programme, which is a government-run, government-supported scheme that us and UK Music and other entities are really involved in, where there's loads of different job breakdowns on their website, so you can see what kind of jobs are even available at record labels and understand which one you might be most interested in as well. So do a bit of research. There's a lot of opportunities out there.
I would also say that if you are a recent graduate, there is always the option about, I'm sure it's a year or so after you finish university, that you can still go back and speak to your careers department. And so many people don't use that facility when they're at uni because there's so much going on, and it's fun and it's hectic and it's parties and, you know, it's everything else. But I'm pretty sure that's something that a lot of universities do, and those people are professionals. They do, a lot of them are probably much better than the uni I went to. Somewhere like this, they've probably got really good people doing that stuff. And also, when you get to my age, going back to speak to a careers advisor is really, really expensive. So take advantage of those things. You know, uni is about making friends and meeting people and playing together, but a lot of the people that work at universities like this one still have a foot in the door in the industry. They, you know, they're doing this job to be inspired by you guys as much as they're doing it to pay the bills and everything else. But they will also go out of their way to help you, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how I got my job at AIM as well. I asked my tutor. So Yeah, lovely to, well, not see you all, but speak with you all. And thank you so much to our amazing panelists. Please give them a hand of applause, round of applause. And I hope you have the best rest of the day.
Big thanks to Nina for hosting as well. Thank you, Nina, for hosting.